Michaela Vernava here with Matt Chatham and Doug Kide, bringing you an AFC Championship game preview. Patriots, Steelers, guys, a lot to look forward to. I want to start with big picture goals for the Patriots. Matt, what is going to be the main thing that they need to focus on today, the Patriots?
I think the thing you'll be happiest to see if you're a Patriots fan is that they come out of this game with a balanced offensive approach in the absence of turnovers. I know that can be sort of cliched, but I think the reason this is important is because relative to who you're playing and this particular opponent, they need you to not play that way. I think they really thrive upon Bud Dupree and some of the new young guys that have got integrated. Ryan Shazier is maybe an off-the-ball guy putting pressure. They want you to become one-dimensional. They really, really want you to rely upon one thing. If they see Tom Brady in the gun and 4 wide receiver sets down after down, I think that plays in their hands. So this notion of balance, I think it's something that we talk about. It is important week to week. It's more important this particular week. And the no turnovers thing, I mean, that's just sort of a slam dunk. But the reason, again, I think that matters this much, and the reason Coach Belichick had so much ammunition on this point was because of the little sloppy play a week ago. And also, if you go back to October when they played in Hines, they put the ball on the ground twice there as well. So I know part of the sideline story here has been Ben Roethlisberger wasn't available and all that, but there was a fumble with Chris Hogan. There was a fumble with Julian Edelman, stuff that's really out of character for this team. You need to be balanced so the other team's guessing, and you need to hang on to that damn rock.
Doug, how about you? What do you think they need to have their eye on in terms of their focus in this game?
Yeah, I'll go over to the defensive side of the ball, and that's to neutralize one of Antonio Brown or Le'Veon Bell. I don't think you can do both of them. I don't think you can take both of those guys away, but the Patriots really do a great job of taking away an opposing offense's best weapon. They kind of have to decide which one they want to focus in on more in this game, whether that is Antonio Brown or Le'Veon Bell. You can't really stack the line and send a bunch of people back in coverage. That's just not really how defense works. So I think the guy that you do have to choose in this one is Antonio Brown, just because the Patriots have been a lot more consistent against the run this year. They haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher since week 12 of last season. So I think that you can stop Bell on the ground. I'm not sure how well you can stop him through the air. I think you probably have to put Patrick Chung on him out there. I don't think that a linebacker can take him on one-on-one. With Antonio Brown, it's going to be a tough decision for the Patriots. You can either single him with Malcolm Butler, you can double him with Malcolm Butler and a safety, you can double him with Logan Ryan and a safety, or you can just choose to play sides. I think the best option is probably to put Butler and a safety on Brown, but Brown and Butler doesn't have a ton of experience in those double coverage situations, so I think that Logan Ryan is probably the better guy to stick in double coverage. The one I think you want to stay away from is playing sides, because you don't want to wind up with Eric Rowe matched up on Antonio Brown in a one-on-one situation. That's either begging for a penalty or 80-yard touchdown out there.
Now, Bell has had over 100 yards in 7 of his last 8 games, and as you mentioned, Doug, the Patriots have not allowed a 100-yard rusher all season, so one of those streaks will continue today. We'll have to see which one. And speaking of star power, guys, start with you, Matt. What do you think is one of the marquee matchups we should have an eye on today?
Well, I'm actually looking on the offensive side of the ball for the Patriots, and as we sort of focus there, I'm not calling this necessarily the key to the game or anything like that, but I certainly think this is something that hasn't got a lot of play, works particularly well for this opponent, and it's sort of the reintegration of Martellus Bennett, and I think the dude needs to be fed. And the reason I say this is sort of understanding the concepts that the Steelers use defensively, and why that matters. You watch a lot of tape on these guys. Their linebackers are athletic and smaller. They flow quite well. They don't take on blockers and sort of face-on situations nearly as well. Why does that matter when you start talking Bennett? Because you need to have that real run-pass component. We talked about on the front end, this notion of balance. Again, this matters with these linebackers because those two guys offside, off the ball and inside are the guys that are going to have to grab Bennett when he block releases. You've seen this a million times this year, maybe not a million, actually. I think I'd prefer it had been a million, but we've seen it enough times this year where Bennett will engage the end of the man line and slip out into a play-action situation. It's so difficult, and the Steelers have a pretty bad habit, in my view, of floating beyond first down depth, of taking aggressive steps into the line at times where they don't need to. The way to let them off the hook is for Bennett to not be heavily involved. So I think that's very important. You got to feed the guy. He has to be a part of it. It doesn't have to be a 6 to 8 touch 100-yard game necessarily, but you have to, from series to series, get him involved. And I think a lot of this has to do with third down conversions as well, guys. When you get in those situations where Tom has his guy, the guy that we're so used to seeing him key in on, if it's Dion Lewis straight out of the backfield or Edelman if the sticks, I think Bennett needs to be that guy from time to time today. You can't let those linebackers off the hook.
Well, these Patriots do have a very well-rounded offense. So, Doug, who are you keeping an eye on?
Personally, I'm keeping an eye on Steelers defensive end / defensive tackle Stephon Tuitt in this matchup. He's kind of emerged as one of those hybrid, versatile defensive linemen. He plays on the edge in base situations, kicks inside in sub situations, and Shaq Mason and David Andrews could have their hands full with that guy, and protecting Brady up the middle certainly is a huge key in this matchup. We saw what happened against the Texans when opposing teams start to get pressure after Brady up through the middle, and Tuitt is that guy on the Steelers defense who probably will provide a lot of pressure. Other guys as well, Bud Dupree, James Harrison, other guys certainly will be coming from all angles against the Patriots, but Patriots offensive line, especially the interior offensive line, is a little bit undersized. Shaq Mason, David Andrews, Joe Thuney, all of these guys are right around 300 pounds. They're all about 6'2", 6'3". Stephon Tuitt is 6'6", over 300 pounds. He's a guy who could use his strength to really dominate guys like Mason and Joe Thuney, even David Andrews. We've seen some strength issues throughout the season with Andrews and Thuney, so that's something certainly to keep an eye on, and Tom Brady certainly has to play a lot better in this game than he did last week to beat the Steelers.
Now looking at the other side of the ball for the Patriots, already mentioned Antonio Brown is going to be a guy the Patriots will have their hands full with. I'm going to throw this out to both of you guys, whoever wants to answer. How do you think they'll cover him?
Well, I think it's less about keying in on a particular dude than finding a theme. And this is sort of what I can share from sort of being a part of this defense and how they prepare for big games like this. You can think back to the old St. Louis Rams Super Bowl thing, our 0-1 game, where it wasn't necessarily hit Marshall this way, hit Ike this way, and hit Torrey this way. It was more hit them all this particular way. So if I'm coming up with a defensive got-to today for this particular week, it's more of a theme of ball disruption and route disruption. Just think about the word disruption all throughout the thing. It's very important because there's a lot of spot stuff that goes on with these guys, a lot of crossing stuff, a lot of building things out of bunches and stacked receivers. You cannot allow those things to form as they're intended to form. That's such a big deal for the defense. So I'm looking here just sort of the whole theme of ball disruption throughout the defense. Batted balls, it's a huge thing. I think from both something you see Ben Roethlisberger a week ago in Kansas City, even back to the Cleveland game a couple weeks before that, having balls batted at the line, not necessarily just from the defensive end or linebackers, but from the tackles. You get to that point where the rush is ending, get the hands up. They've really struggled with that, especially when they get down here into this red zone right behind us here or at the other end. When the room gets tired, the hands need to get up. So think hard. You're sitting at home, you're watching this game, things that you can pick out. Watch and see if the receiver's free release. That's a bad thing for the Patriots. Watch and see if the defensive rushers go past the quarterback and aren't actually in the pass lane. There always becomes a point where you got to do one of those two things. They knock that out of the park. I think life is really difficult here for the Steelers.
Doug, I'm curious what you're looking at, because this is going to be one of the toughest offenses that the Patriots have faced possibly all season.
Yeah, really what I'm looking at is whether it's Bell or whether it is the Steelers tight ends, whoever the Patriots linebackers are covering, they could give the Patriots some trouble out here just because Kyle Van Noy has let up some big plays. Landon Roberts has let up some big plays. Shea McClellan, not exactly known for his coverage. Dante Hightower, probably the best coverage linebacker in that unit, but you like to see him stay near the line of scrimmage. He's a guy who can, cover a flat route, then stop a guy for 3 or 4 yards, but you don't want him down the field in either in a downfield route, either for a tight end or for a running back. So that's really what I'll be looking for. A guy like Jesse James on the Steelers, if the Patriots do decide to put tight ends on him or put linebackers on him, he's a guy who could go off. I don't know. I mean, obviously he's not a name that a lot of people have talked about this week. None of the Steelers tight ends are that great as receivers, but as soon as you get that matchup against a Van Noy or against a McClellan or against a Landon Roberts, Ben Roethlisberger certainly is going to be looking at those guys. And Le'Veon Bell, if a tight end and if a linebacker is going up against him, that could be some major trouble out there because he only has 2 catches for 4 yards, I think, or 4 catches for 3 yards over the last 2 games. They really have not been getting him involved in the receiving game, but he went off against the Patriots earlier this season, week 7, had 10 catches, 60 yards. Could happen again if they find a linebacker on him.
To piggyback that point real quickly, one of the things I think you can watch at home that'll tell you how they handle this issue with tight ends in the middle of the field is the personnel group decisions that they decide to make against Bell. Watch that at home. If you see a lot of sub, nickel, that just simply means that you'll see one less linebacker than you're used to seeing. That's big because Le'Veon Bell has had a lot of the success against teams getting into sub situations, putting your little dudes out there. He sits in the shotgun like you used to see in the stadium with Curtis Martin back in the day, or the old one next door. But shotgun runs, they want you to go thin. If they stay big, it makes those matchups to get the tight end a little easier, I believe. It's just the threat of can they widen out against a wide receiver. That's sort of the risk.
Now, guys, special teams. This has sort of been a roller coaster ride for the Patriots all season. Highs and lows from Cyrus Jones and all the miscues to Dion Lewis scoring a touchdown on a kickoff return last week against the Texans. Matt, start with you. What are you looking at when it comes to special teams today?
I'll be brief on this point. I think, fortunately, the Patriots, from that perspective, they put one on film last week with getting the big kick return. So at least they made them prepare for that. Do I think that's going to be a huge part of this game? I won't go there. But I don't know if you can tell through the camera lens, folks, but it's a little misty out here. Around game time, it still may be a little wet here. But anyway, there's a little something out here. So ball handling becomes huge. So my guy is actually Ryan Allen, the punter. The reason Ryan, he's just a silent killer on this team. His ability to hang the ball up, give great hang time balls, and kick directionally even when pressure comes is so big. We saw this a week ago, Kansas City and the Steelers, with Tyreek Hill as one potential punt returner, Antonio Brown's the other. That is a nightmare for either coverage unit, and both of them sort of stayed out of the mix. So I've put a lot of focus today on Ryan Allen putting great hang time balls outside. They get fair caught. You'll love to see Matt Slater and the guys just jogging past him, so that's not a big part of the game.
We do have rain out here, and if you can see from my hair, we also have wind. But on that note, Doug, what are you keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the other side. The other punt returners, Julian Edelman or Danny Amendola, whoever the Patriots decide to throw out there. The Steelers were 23rd in net yards per punt this season, and that tells you that not only are the punts not traveling that far, but they're also allowing a lot of yards on the return. So, we've seen the Patriots be, I'm not sure if they've been conservative, but there haven't been a lot of big plays on punt returns this year, and that is because of a lot of ball security issues that Cyrus Jones had. You don't want to get Julian Edelman or Danny Amendola injured back there, but this could be a game where you see a big return from either Edelman or Amendola. It seems like it probably will be Edelman back there. Seems to be a question of whether Amendola is actually even going to be active in this game. So if it is Edelman, he's a guy who can certainly break big plays back there as a punt returner. He's done it in the past, and against the Steelers special teams, he certainly could in this game.
Well, guys, I think we're in for a good game, and I think the fan base is definitely fired up for this one. Should be a better matchup, more anticipation heading into this one than they were against the Texans. So, deciding factor. Matt, I'll start with you.
Big takeaway for me is just simply putting the boot on the throat. I mean, I think this is one of those games where you do not want to allow them to linger. You do not want to have a mistake-ridden first half. You don't want to keep this thing in question for more than it should be. The honest-to-God fact, it's not tough. It's difficult to talk about during a week when you're trying to respect the opponent, but the reality of the situation is that team didn't score a touchdown a week ago, and you have a better defense, and you got them at home. You earned the right to be here. Got to put the boat on the on throat, and you got to step on it. This is the time where if you want to go to the Super Bowl, you absolutely have to play like it. So more of a little bit of a qualitative key there than actually some stat you're chasing.
I'll go with the stat on this one, and that's Patriots red zone defense against the Steelers red zone offense. You talked about they did not have any touchdowns last week. They were in the red zone 4 times, did not score. The Patriots red zone defense has really improved a ton throughout the season. Early in the season, guys like Michael Lombardi were really blasting the Patriots for their red zone defense. They finished the season, I believe it was 8th in red zone defense this season. They're 2nd in their last 3 games. On the other hand, Steelers were 29th in red zone offense on the road this season. I think they were 18th or 20th in their last 3 games. This is definitely a game where the Patriots should be able to stop the Steelers in the red zone. And one of the things is Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, obviously great offensive playmakers, but they're both a little bit better in space, I'd say.
Less space and small room.
Absolutely. And Antonio Brown only had 4 touchdowns in the red zone this season. That was out of 12 total touchdowns. Le'Veon Bell only had 7 rushing touchdowns. So those are guys that you can stop once you get inside the 20-yard line.
One thing to peek at, and we covered this on a video, talked about it quite a bit on Nesson during the week. You're sitting at home, look for the help players. Look at how they account for those guys when they get down in that low area. You only have 11. You really are only dealing with 2 help players, potentially 2 high, maybe 1 low. I think something that we should really keep an eye on in this game is whether or not the Steelers go back to a lot of pre-snap movement. They had success with it in the past, a lot more so last year than this, but they've seen a lot of standing around. Brown there, standing there, no movement. Because the Patriots gave up that misdirection touchdown to Fedorowicz at the other end zone here last week, I think they earned themselves some reps that will look like that. Can they handle the movement? That'll be a big factor in this game.
All right, guys. Well, clearly this one is going to be, as Bill Belichick would say, in all 3 phases of the game. A good one in all 3 phases of the game. The rain now is picking up. It is cold out here. I will be interested to see if we see any shirtless Steelers with their face masks on. That seems to be a theme of this playoffs.
Right.
But lots to be excited about, and we'll have everyone covered on Nesson.com. So, guys, thanks for tuning in, and make sure to keep it right here.
Peace.